about that.
Good to see your face.
Good to see you.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Yes. How's the weather in Chicago today?
Yeah, same as always.
Okay.
I guess, never good enough, but not quite the worst.
I know. I see some sunshine peeping through, so that's good.
Yes,
so
we're
thank
there.
you for joining today.
I am
We're so
happy to be
excited.
here. I am very happy to chat with you and let all the people hear all the awesome things that you have to say about these lovely GLP-1s.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, I think, well, first of all, Coach Sheena and I, just to give a few disclaimers up front, first of all, we're not physicians. We do not prescribe medication, nor do we treat any diseases. What we do is help our clients with a comprehensive lifestyle, nutrition, all of the things that are going to help you maintain your weight loss and live your healthiest life. So just so you know that anything we talk about today, it is not medical advice. And what we do help you with, though, is to maybe help you find ways to go back to your prescriber and ask very targeted questions so you can be your own best advocate, because there are times where they may push back when you do request something, whether it's blood work or a GLP-1, and we can help you in navigating that. And the second thing I think that is important to talk about is that Sheena and I, both of us have clients who are currently taking GLP-1s. We've also had former clients who have taken them. And it's our responsibility as, health professionals or health and nutrition professionals who don't prescribe to understand the context in which people are taking these, the nuances of the medications, so that we can set our clients up for the best possible outcome and an outcome that they can maintain. So we are not here today to try to discourage you or encourage you. That is up to you. That's your decision. And we just like to lay out everything that we know, and then you can make a more informed decision for yourself. And as Sheena taught me years ago, we've known each other for a while, because I had a lot of questions for her several years ago about health and nutrition, is she would always encourage me to do my own research and not take her word for something. So what we're sharing with you today, I would say keep doing your research, listen to podcasts, read books, talk to your healthcare provider, talk to a pharmacist, so that you can make the most informed decision that you feel good about. So now that I got all of that out of the way, Sheena's going to kind of start off the discussion and just ask me some questions to get us rolling based on some of the questions that have come in and what we've seen with our clients that will hopefully help you be a little more informed or make a better decision about whether you want to try one of these medications or how to make the best use of them if you are currently taking them. So, Sheena, do you
facilitate?
Want to throw out a question? Get me started.
I'm ready to facilitate. Yeah. So I think, as Gwen stated, and I'll say it in a different way too. This is a judgment-free zone. Like she said, we don't ever tell people to go take these medications. Sometimes people find us because they're going to start taking the medications and they want to develop healthy habits that once they're done with the medications, they have the habits in place to continue and maintain the weight loss that they may or may not experience, right? So judgment-free zone here. We are not for the medication. We are not against the medication. People should always have the right to choose a path that they feel best about. So so there's that. So yeah, I will be facilitating because the number of times that Gwen and I have had conversations, trying to help each other with our own clients, the number of things that she has told me or educated me on with this stuff is like, it was, I think you and I were just like, how do we get this? I said to you, I'm like, we got to get this out there, because if I have these questions, I'm positive that other people have these questions. And I think that you've been through, the right questions to ask physicians, the right questions to ask your clients, and all of these things that I think I was like, I'm going to ask you questions so that you can then spread this awesome knowledge. So
that
number
works.
one, I think, like, who are these medications for?
Okay.
Who should be taking them, or who are taking them?
And I think those are two different things. So I'll cover both. So first of all, the indications, when you hear the term indication, that means that the FDA has officially approved the medication for a specific use. So some of the GLP-1 agonists, which is called, it's short for glucagon-like peptides. And just so you know, we create those peptides in our own gut. This is just kind of on steroids version. It's a synthetic way, like we're obviously creating it in our own bodies, but it's to accelerate weight loss. And it's also to help with other health conditions.
Sure.
So they're approved for people who, for weight loss, some of them are approved for weight loss. For people who have a BMI of 27 or higher, some of them are for people with a BMI of 30 or higher. So it's an interesting thing. I actually went on a couple of websites and entered my current weight and height and age and let people know if I had diabetes. It's just kind of a formula behind the scenes. And I was very encouraged to see that both of the online pharmacies would decline to fill my prescription. They said that it was not clinically appropriate and that they wouldn't do it. And that's the best case scenario, is that you have a very reliable, competent physician, whether it's through telehealth or your own provider, who is looking at the criteria that they should be looking at, which is what did the FDA approve it for, and are you a likely candidate? So that's one reason if it's considered for weight loss. The second reason, if someone is pre-diabetic or they're diabetic and they need to work on getting their A1C or their fasting glucose down, and maybe the physician is trying to get one of their patients in a better metabolic state, and they've tried dieting, they've tried exercise, and they're just not moving the needle on their blood work, and so they need some additional support. This is a great option for those people. So anyone with a BMI of 27 or higher, or 30 or higher, depending on which medication it is, or in some cases, people who are pre-diabetic or diabetic, those are the indications. Okay, so that's who it's supposed to be used for. However, people are getting it when they don't meet that inclusion criteria. And how they're getting it is there are med spas where people can go, like the people who are typically doing fillers and facials and Botox, and it's more of a cosmetic, like aesthetic med spa. They recognize that getting the active ingredient, which is semaglutide or tirzepatide, they can order these medications or the peptide through a compounding pharmacy. And a compounding pharmacy is a pharmacy that, just think of it as like actually a lab where they're kind of making potions, they're making the drug out of active ingredients that they're putting together. And so if you see things like the skinny shot, that's one of the things that's been advertised. Come to our med spa and get the skinny shot. They might add a little bit of B12 into it, or L-carnitine. I've seen that being added. Now, so that's another way that you could potentially get it. And if somebody wanted to lose 20 pounds and they didn't have a BMI that was high enough, a med spa might say, hey, we're going to give it to whoever asks. It's a, whether it's because they want to be, is it a money grab? I don't know, right? Is it clinically appropriate? Based on the FDA, no, it's not. But once again, it's a personal choice. And if somebody wants to go and get it that way, they certainly can.
Right. So these ones are not FDA approved, right? The compounds from the med spas.
Yes. So the compounds they're approved and they can be used, but they don't have to be under as much scrutiny like physicians or healthcare providers who are practicing.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that they're not, couldn't be sued for misusing or misprescribing that medication, but there's less scrutiny around it. And I'll also say that the manufacturers of the drugs like Wegovy and Ozempic are coming after the compounding pharmacies because they're selling it at a very reduced rate. So Wegovy, Ozempic, Zepbound, these are all the brand names that you'll see, and those are companies like Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk. Of course, they're charging upwards of $1,000 a month. And if you go to a compounding pharmacy directly, you could get a telehealth visit with one of their providers Weight Watchers now has a program, a semaglutide program,
Oh.
where they have physicians on staff. That, I would say, is a better option than going to a med spa where you don't really know, the physician or the healthcare provider may not even be on site,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't really ask the questions you want to ask. Who knows who's going to be dispensing that medication to you? And you're one step removed from the compounding pharmacy.
Okay.
But you can get it for under $300 a month. So we're talking, 1/3 of the cost than if you get it from a manufacturer. Now,
jumping a lot of steps just to get the, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, the other thing is there's less tightness of control over the what the ingredients are.
Right.
You don't know what's going on. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you're eating a meal. We don't know how much oil somebody's putting in there. It might say 1 tablespoon, but they might have added 3 tablespoons. So if you've got the FDA oversight on the manufacturers, the drug manufacturers, you can be very certain that the dose they're saying you're getting in that injectable pen is what you're getting.
Right.
So you're up to a little bit of that as a risk. And just as an aside, all of these medications are injectables. They're weekly injectables in your stomach. Some people, there are anecdotal reports of people using other injection sites, like their leg or their buttocks, just because people have seen that it actually has shown more efficacy. It's actually more effective if they change the injection site. Now, once again, that's anecdotal.
Yeah.
It's not anything that has been, that's in the prescribing information, but just something to consider.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
I wonder how they would figure that out. Like, are you losing more weight? That's an interesting self-experiment to run. Like, are you 2 weeks injecting in your tummy, but then you're 4 weeks later you're injecting in your buttocks, and it's like, is the weight loss just adding up? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Over time, or like that's an interesting way to go about it. But okay. So we've got our med spas, we've got our FDA approvals. What are some of the issues that you're seeing with both locations? Like, let's say somebody goes through the FDA approval, they're going through their GP, they've got the prescription. What are some of the things, maybe some red flags to look out there, and then some red flags to look out from the med spas as well?
Okay. So first of all, I would say many primary care physicians, that's typically where people are going, and maybe in some cases an endocrinologist, if someone is getting their diabetes managed by an endocrinologist, I think offices are getting inundated with many requests for this class of drugs because it does have to be prescribed. It's not over the counter, right? So you do have to interact with a healthcare provider who can prescribe for you. And some of the barriers to actually getting the medication, one is that your provider may try to discourage you. They may not be open-minded. They might say, I don't think you're a candidate. Even if you technically are a candidate, they might say, I want you to try other interventions, maybe diet and exercise. You've already tried that. You've made the decision that it's time for you to start. So it could be that your provider tries to dissuade you from starting it. The second thing that may be an obstacle is that your pharmacy prescription plan, if you have CVS Caremark or Express Scripts, these are the common, you'll see the name on your pharmacy card that you have from your employer if you have insurance. And they go through really strict protocols. When a new medication comes out or it's very expensive, they call it a P&T committee, or pharmacy and therapeutics. And what they're trying to do is narrow the approval window. They don't want everyone who wants this medication to get it. They want to make sure they meet the criteria, and they're also trying to manage the costs. So if your insurance company does not cover one of the medications, let's say it's Wegovy, your doctor prescribes Wegovy, you go to the pharmacy to get it filled, and the pharmacist says, that's not covered by your insurance. That will be $1,300.22. for your prescription and your jaw hits the floor and you say, wait a second, I thought my insurance would cover this. So you have a couple of options. You can go back to your prescriber and say, okay, my insurance did not cover Wegovy. Is there another medication in the same class of drugs? That's what they call it. So this class is the GLP-1s. And the doctor would say, I don't know, because they can't keep track of all the plans and the plans within the insurer.
Okay.
But you can call your pharmacy plan. So I encourage you to call and say, if my doctor was to prescribe one of these medications, which do you approve and which are not on your list?
Okay.
And that's a great place to start. And that's where you can start to learn to be your own advocate and ask those questions so that you come back to your provider armed with the information that is going to improve your likelihood of getting this medication. And this goes for any medication, by the way. Most doctors get in the habit of prescribing, they have a go-to medication in each class of drugs, and it just keeps it simple for them. It's what they have experience with. It doesn't mean that there's not another medication that would also be effective for you. It's just that it's requiring their staff to make phone calls, and that's money that they're paying. So it may be that you need to do the work as their patient, and then you come back and say, I did some investigating. Wegovy isn't covered, but Ozempic is. And so can you please prescribe for that?
Right.
So then you have an alternative. You go back to the pharmacy and, okay, this is another thing that may come up. And they say, oh, we can't prescribe it because your doctor needs to fill out a prior authorization. So it's approved and your insurance company will pay for it. But now your doctor has to fill out some paperwork as an added step.
Which they love doing.
Right? So once again, this is another opportunity for you to be your own advocate. You go back to the physician, you call the office, or you walk in there and talk to the office manager or whoever handles insurance, and you say, okay, I got the prescription for the drug that was covered, but now they're saying they need a prior approval. They're sending you a form. Did you get it yet? When can you fill it out? And then I would follow up with that physician's office, because this is where it can be, really get tiring, and you might just get frustrated and disappointed, but it's worth it. If it's something that you want to take and you've made that decision, I would say don't give up. Now, if none of the medications are covered under your insurance in any way or form, the whole class of drugs is not covered, you can go to the manufacturer, to their website. So let's say you go to Novo Nordisk, which is Wegovy, and they have what we call patient assistance programs. And those are in place to help people who do not have coverage. They don't have insurance coverage. They don't have a payer who's paying for it. It might be somebody who is on Medicaid or Medicare, and they just don't have the means financially. And so if you meet certain criteria with the manufacturer, you may get a reduced rate or free medication. So that's another option.
That's with a doctor's approval, right?
If you get the approval for the prescription, you still have to get the prescription, and then you would just let the doctor know that that's what you're doing. And then they might still need to fill out paperwork, even though the pharmacy won't cover it, the manufacturer is covering it. So then another thing that the manufacturers provide, so we've got one thing, which is the patient assistance program. The second thing are called coupons, and they look like this. So your doctor may have them like a physical coupon in their office that they can give to you to take to the pharmacy. And even if your insurance doesn't cover it, the coupon may take off enough of the retail price that you feel that it's worthwhile. Maybe it's $100 or $200 that you end up paying per month. So that's another option. So now we've got your prescription plan, you've got the patient assistance programs,
Coupon.
you've got the coupons from the manufacturers. And then lastly, if none of those things work, this is actually a prescription savings card from a company called Good RX. And it's really fantastic. They have contracts with the manufacturers to provide their medications at a lower rate. So they get a rebate and they work something out on the back end because they're going to get more volume coming through goodrx.com so they can offer lower prices. So if you're paying cash and you've decided you don't get any kind of support, but you still want to take it and you want to pay out of pocket, I would go to goodrx.com and type in the medication that you've been prescribed. And it's not just the GLP-1s, right? These are other medications. It could be for your reflux or your Hashimoto's. I mean, it could be anything. So it's just a great resource. In some cases, you don't even need the physical card. You can just go to the website and they will honor that pricing. And then the last way to get it would be to pay cash, go to a compounding pharmacy that is an accredited pharmacy. So one of them that I feel is, a very good pharmacy is called Henry Meds, Henry. And they have physicians and healthcare providers on staff so that they're going through the medical process where you're going to get approved, and they're following the criteria and making sure that everything's checked off and you're a good candidate from a clinically approved, this is a good fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be an option if your doctor isn't willing to have that dialogue with you. You can keep your primary care doctor, but you can still just go through a telehealth organization and get a one-time visit, and then you'll get the prescription and they'll make sure that you're covered, and they'll do all the work on the insurance stuff, probably more than your doctor would do, which is great.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
See, so, I mean, you just listed, I think, 4 or 5 different ways that you can make this happen if you want, which is, and I'm sure people had no idea.
Yeah. And I think, Sheena, that's the biggest thing. And that's what you and I do every day, is what we try to do with our clients, whether, whatever their decision is about their health or their fat loss journey, is that we want them to be armed with all of the options and give that information to them so that they can make the best decision, and they don't have to get all of this information from different people. It may take them a really long time to get that information. Nothing feels better than to be able to say, okay, here are some of the things you can do. Here are some things you can talk to your doctor about. And I love it because I used to work for a pharmaceutical company for over 13 years. And some of the medications we provided were life-saving. And I do believe that for the right patient, these medications are transformational.
Mm-hmm.
They can
help.
Like diabetes, they can improve metabolic health. There is some data that's looking at neuroprotective health, like people who have Alzheimer's. It could have an effect on depression. It can decrease inflammation. It can offset oxidative stress that leads to chronic disease, and there may be even some anti-aging benefits. I think the 2 biggest things related to fat loss that I think are, just what I've seen with my clients and just from what I've read, is number 1, you're not as hungry, right? Yeah. So now I also want people to keep in mind that sometimes the really good things can turn into something that isn't as good. So I'll talk about that as well. Yeah. So it's actually delaying gastric emptying. Sure. So it's slowing things down so that you are physiologically feeling less hungry. So it's just giving people that boost that sometimes they need, because they don't have a real sense for, am I physiologically hungry? I don't know what that feels like. It's been a really long time. And when people chronically diet, sometimes they are so, they call it low energy availability, LEA, right? And everything slows down and you're just never hungry. I can't tell you how many clients have come to us. You know the archetype, and they're eating 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day. They're not losing weight, and they're just not hungry.
Yeah.
But then there's the opposite end where people are eating in a surplus, and they are very stimulated by external cues for eating. If food's available, if they drive past a McDonald's, they're in a social situation and that means eat, and they're just having trouble kind of quieting the noise. That's called food noise. And there's a big, impact on food noise reduction with these peptides. And sometimes that's what people need to realize how much they were eating based on external cues rather than internal physiological cues. And so in that case, I think it's super helpful. But I do want to say that if you look at all of the information from the manufacturers, they're not saying, they even state it in their package insert information, the product information, which is taking these peptides should be part of a comprehensive lifestyle modification program. And I think that is the piece that I've seen. One of our former clients actually lost 70 pounds on her own and then hit a plateau. And she's seeing a psychologist who specializes in disordered eating, eating disorders, and people who are obese. And so she was getting that support from the mindset piece and the cognitive behavioral therapy. And he actually is the one who recommended to her, what do you think about starting one of these just to give you that extra boost because you're trying to lose 100 pounds and you've been stalled out? So what was great for her is that her psychologist recommended it. Her psychologist and her primary care doctor are both on the same page, which, is super important. And she also, has periodically booked a session with me just to kind of touch base to make sure that she's on track with things. And, that's the piece that I think we're missing. If you lose 80 pounds on one of these or 100, and then you go off of it and you have no exit strategy, and that can mean a lot of things, the likelihood of you maintaining your weight loss will be significantly reduced. So this is about habit change, which also includes mindset work and the peptide. So really, it's a few things together. It's not just a medication by itself, right?
It's a tool. It's a piece of the puzzle that as you were talking about it, it just, to me, it was like, it's a skill that people are learning. How they're learning a skill, right? Which is like, okay, am I actually hungry, or is it just that I see food, or it's dinner time, or I heard the dinner bell, or the microwave oven went off, or I drove by the McDonald's. Those are all learned behaviors. And it does, hormonally, you get messed up to think, yeah, I am hungry, when really, no, you just ate, your body's fine, right? But these medications might actually help people get into a position where they can practice, oh, I'm actually not hungry. And like you said, cognitive, relearn those behaviors. And yeah, that's huge. It's no different, again, if a trainer gives you a program, an exercise program, and says, hey, go do this for 6 months, but after 6 months, you're done. You won't have to exercise ever again. That's the worst trainer in the world. Right? Exactly. It's something that if you start exercising, the plan better be that you're going to continue exercising for the rest of your life, because that's what exercise is. It's something that should help you maintain a healthy life, right? So yeah, I think with these medications, it should be something that you need to have an entrance plan, right? This is how I'm going to go into it, which hopefully we have some more questions on that. And then the exit plan, or not even an exit, but my favorite word here, maintain, right? How many people now are going, if you're successful and you drop 20 pounds, 50 pounds, whatever, your probably biggest, goal coming out of this is, how do I maintain this weight, right? Which I love that word, because maintaining still takes work, right? 100%. It's not, we're not if you lose that 50 pounds and you're as happy as you can be, and all of a sudden now you're jumping back into your life without the medication, you better have step A, B, C, D figured out as to how to maintain this now. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but are there questions, like what would be, if you could maybe list like, your top question or top 3, 5, whatever, for people to ask their primary care physician or ask anybody, like going into if you decide to take the drug, what are 3 things that you think, don't even label it to 3, whatever, that people are good questions to ask going into it?
I mean, the first thing I would want to know is how many people are they treating? Like, have they treated one person, or have they prescribed these meds for 200 or 300 people? So what's their level of experience? And you can ask them that. I think a question you can also ask is, do you have a recommendation for a provider? I don't know if this is something that you do, if you're prescribing this in your practice, or do you have somebody that you refer people out to? And that's a very reasonable question, because primary care physicians and nurse practitioners and PAs, they refer to specialists all the time, right? If it's a thyroid disorder and it's a complicated case, they're going to send it to an endocrinologist. So what's their experience like with it? Number one. Number 2 might be something like, well, how long? I want to lose X amount of pounds. How long do you feel this might take me? That's typically what people ask. Do I think that's one of the most important questions? Not me, because a lot of people still think, oh, let me do this as fast as I can to get the weight off. And remember, it's never really about how quickly you lose it. Back to using your favorite word. It's, can you maintain the fat loss? And in fact, if people lose weight too quickly and too aggressively because the dose has been pushed too high too fast, you will likely experience side effects.
Yeah.
And you may get what they're calling Ozempic face or Ozempic butt, which is it's called wasting syndrome. And what's happening is you are losing more muscle than you are fat. And that is something that is a risk on any type of calorie restriction. So anytime you're in a deficit, you are going to lose some muscle. The goal is always to maintain as much as you can and lose more fat. And that's, that visceral fat around your midsection, that's we really want to take a look at. So I got sidetracked a little bit there because I got so excited.
No, are there any other questions? So it's so funny too, right? Because you're saying like the doctors, like the drug manufacturing company says, like this has to be accompanied by health and lifestyle change, right? That is the prescription. Yet it's not prescribed. Like your doctor will say, hey, change your habits and your exercise. And like we all know, like, okay, so go put that in Google and see what you come up with. Like, well, what is healthy?
And you know what?
For each person.
I would say that to the doctor, is like,
what
do you recommend for a comprehensive plan that's going to set me up for success? Right. And this isn't like you're taking an antibiotic for 7 days because you have a stomach bug. This is something that does require maintenance. Like you said, Sheena, it does require work still. Now, hopefully it's less work because you put in the tough work, the hard work up front, and hopefully that's kind of easing up, some of the cognitive load, and you're kind of in the groove with your habits and you know what you need to do to maintain it. So I do believe that's the missing link. You can go to the prescriber to get the meds, or to get the prescription. You can go to a pharmacy to, acquire it so that you can inject it. But that comprehensive program, that's where we come in essentially, is what can we do to set up each of our clients for the best possible outcome while they're taking the medication. And then when they've hit their weight loss goal, or when they decide like, okay, I have 20 more pounds to lose, what can I do to wean myself off of this medication? So that would be another question that I would ask the physician. Like, let's say I reach my weight loss goal, or for any other reason, I'm coming off of this medication. What do I do to mitigate the potential for weight rebound, right? That I'm going to regain the weight that I've lost. If they don't have an answer for you, that's a problem. And
Mm-hmm.
once again, that goes back to the comprehensive program. So, and are they tapering off of the medication for you, or are they abruptly stopping the medication and
Right.
saying, okay, we're just going to take you off? Because with a lot of medications, like let's look at an antidepressant. If anyone has ever taken an antidepressant, like a Zoloft or Prozac or Celexa, if you've ever had to come off of one of those for any reason, side effects, you're pregnant, doesn't matter what the reason is, you don't think it's working anymore, and so you've decided with your provider that that's what you're doing, they never abruptly stop the antidepressant and start the new one. What they do is they taper down on the first one that you're taking, and they slowly increase the other one. So it's like they're crossing paths.
Yeah.
So you maintain a therapeutic dose. And that's the same situation here, right? Is we don't want to abruptly stop a medication. So that's something that I would ask them about is, do they have experience tapering people off? How do they get them off? And just see what their answer is.
Do they taper off? I've had a client that just came off of a medication, and I asked her, like, this is one of the questions. I was like, did he recommend tapering? She's like, no, we're just cutting it off. And she's like, it's nice to feel hungry again. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's good. Like, I'm glad that you're hungry, but I'm also like, you're like, you haven't been hungry for 6 months. Like, this is going to be like, now it's this is work. Like, what do we have to handle this now? Luckily we're working together, so that's helpful. But
exactly,
it made me think of other people that are, I haven't been hungry for 6 months. I've lost however much weight, and now all of a sudden I'm hungry again. Do I have the skills to be able to handle that hunger? Do I know what moderation looks like for me? Do I know roughly how many calories I can eat to maintain this weight?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I know the Super Bowl is coming up? Like, how am I going to handle myself at the Super Bowl? Like, there's just, I would love for there to be, and I know this isn't going to happen, but like, some nice, a nice blanket, like, where all the doctors are following the same procedures. As like, yes, we should be, helping people taper off of this. So, that's a
well,
tough
and
one.
I also think that this is another way that as a patient, you can advocate for yourself, and you can say to the physician, I've been doing some research, or, they love that when you say I Googled something. Yeah. They don't, but
they love paperwork,
okay.
And they love when you come in thinking that you know a little bit more than them or as much as them. They love that.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter if they like it or not, right? You have the right to ask any question you want from your provider. And if you don't have a good relationship with your provider and they've frustrated you, find a new one. Mm-hmm. It is not worth it. There are amazing providers out there who are compassionate, have great bedside manner, who are knowledgeable, and you deserve to be with somebody like that. But you could even ask them, what are your thoughts about me slowly coming off of this medication so that I can start to practice those skills that I've learned with Sheena or Gwen? And I really want to make sure that I don't gain this weight back. And so instead of a once a week injection, can I do it once every 2 weeks? And then once I do that, can I do it? So that's called a slow taper, right? And then can we lower the dose? And I do that lower dose for every 2 weeks. And then maybe you go to 3 weeks. I mean, these are studies that will be ongoing that, you can go to Google and type in Google Scholar, or you can go to pubmed.com and you can look up recently published studies that I guarantee you will be looking at low dose maintenance doses where people may stay on this peptide for a lifetime, or a slow taper off of the medication. And this is also very common in medicine. It's called minimum effective dose, right? And regardless of what medication we're taking for what diagnosis or for what reason, we should be taking the least amount of meds to get the most efficacy, because otherwise you're going to potentially be causing more side effects than are needed. You're paying more money than needed. And why do you need to do that? And that's part of the Hippocratic Oath, right? It's minimum effective dose. So I think you'll see studies in the future on that. There is a third generation GLP-1 agonists coming out, which may have like maybe even better with side effects. Constipation, nausea, like some of the other ones are vomiting. People have had experience with vomiting. If you have a history of thyroid cancer in your family, that's a contraindication, meaning you probably shouldn't be taking one of these. And just some people don't even find joy in eating.
Yeah.
And,
that's hard.
That's kind of a bummer too, right? Like, it does cross the blood-brain barrier, which means it is working on your brain's neurotransmitters for you to not even crave the foods you may have craved before. So that, in combination with the GLP-1 in your gut slowing the emptying, is a very powerful combination. And they're even looking at using these for addiction. Some people have said that they are actually not even wanting to drink as much, or if they have compulsive behaviors like shopping or gambling, it's helped them with that. So I think there are some really amazing things in the future that are coming along with this class of drugs, and a newer, like they call it a second generation, so that they're on the third generation that will be coming out. And the goal is that they come out with something more efficacious that will work better and have fewer side effects. So I think one of the things we haven't covered yet that I definitely want to cover is, okay, so what can you do? What are some of the biggest risks that I think need to be monitored while you're taking the medication? The number one, I would say getting blood work periodically to look at your health markers. And that could be your A1C and your fasting glucose, which are your metabolic markers, or your fasting insulin. So you might want to get those three things. And, those should be improving as you're taking the peptide.
Will doctors do that? Will that be a part of the prescription, or do you have to ask
for that?
And will they, anytime I feel like I ask for blood work, my doctor's like, why? And then I say, because I want to. And that's not a good enough answer. Because I want to know what the number is. Can people can they test these things on their own without a doctor?
Yes. Okay. Yes. There are labs, like the one that I use is called Ulta Lab Tests Online, ULTA. And I wore a continuous glucose monitor in the spring last year, and I tested my own A1C, fasting glucose, and fasting insulin, and it was, I think, like $54. Because for me to go to my provider, I would have had to spend $185 for the visit, and then I would have had to potentially argue with them or had a dialogue about why I wanted that done, and she may have refused, and she likely would have. So I just know that, and for me, it's worth the cost out of pocket, because I like to monitor my lab markers. So that's number one, is getting your fasting insulin, fasting glucose, and A1C. That's your metabolic health. That should be improving.
One more question. It should be improving. Okay. So there's not a specific range that we're looking for in there. It's going to be dependent on the person could start with an A1C of 7, and we just want to see it coming. Okay.
Yeah. Just want to see it coming down. So, and that's because this, I know it's easy to get focused on the weight loss portion of this, but there are incredible health benefits. And I think that's why these peptides have exploded, right? Is because it seems like some miracle drug. Is it a miracle drug? I don't know yet. I think it's too early to tell. And I think that if you don't focus on that comprehensive lifestyle, that, like you just said earlier today, Sheena, it's like, you're unhappy in your marriage or unhappy at your job, and you lose 20 pounds. Does that mean everything's better with your marriage and your job? No. It's working on the mindset and the habit piece that is going to really be the comprehensive approach. I forgot what I was saying.
We're going on. So you said the things that people should monitor are the A1C, the fasting glucose. What else?
So that's the metabolic health. The second thing, and I think is super important, is getting your lean muscle mass tested. Where do you do that? You can look up DEXA scan in you're near where you live, just type in DEXA scan near me. If you live in Chicago, there's one in Andersonville that I use pretty frequently called Live Lean RX. The reason I like that way of measuring lean muscle mass is that you get a bone density as well. So for females who might be perimenopausal or menopausal, it's really important to test your bone health. And the GLP-1s, there's also some data that it might improve your bone health. I mean, I think there's more to come on all of this. But either that or an in-body scale, which you can also go on their website and look up a location near you. That would be the second way. The third way, which doesn't really tell you lean muscle mass, but for females, our waist circumference should be under 35 inches. And that's a really big indication of your propensity for disease, insulin resistance, prediabetes, diabetes. So you really want to keep your waist under 35 inches. And then, so lean muscle mass, and then the metabolic health. And you really want your body fat to kind of, to be a 3 to 4 to 1 ratio of
muscle.
Fat loss to muscle loss. Because that's a really important thing. Keeping muscle on our bodies is kind of our key to longevity and health. And it's not just about how your body looks. It's about managing blood sugar. It's about bone health. It's about if you fall when you get older, your mortality goes up if you have a fall. It's, there are a lot of different benefits to it. So
those are the three things that you would look at getting monitored: your blood work, your lean tissue, and the rate of weight loss, or where's the weight loss coming from.
Where's the weight loss coming from? Ideally you're going to see in your midsection. You don't want it to be on your face or your butt. That is probably means your dose is too high and you're going to need a dosage adjustment. So that would be going back to your provider and just sharing that experience and making sure that you're not losing weight too quickly, right? Quickly doesn't mean maintainable.
Right. And I'll throw this out there too. Don't at-home scales that are telling you what your body fat percentage is. Those are not going to be as accurate as an in-body scale or a DEXA. So don't rely on those, because they're probably just still taking your height and your weight and running a calculation and being like, oh, look, you did it. You gained muscle. And so along with that, do you have more on this?
No, go ahead. That's it.
I was going to ask, is there evidence yet that you can, I guess I'm guessing the answer is very dependent on the person and how much the person is actually eating, what they're eating while they're on the weight loss drugs. Can they gain muscle while they're taking this?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's, really, it doesn't matter what kind of diet you're following, whether it's keto or low carb or just counting your macros, or if you're on one of these peptides, is you are always likely going to lose muscle, right? A little bit of muscle while you're trying to lose weight. So I don't think you can build muscle. I don't have a specific study that I can cite. That's something I would like to look into more, but anytime you're
done yet, has anybody done a study on that?
I don't know. That's a great question, right? So if you're in a fat loss phase, you're typically not in a building phase. So what is too fast? One of our followers just asked that question. And Sheena, I don't know what your answer is on this. I'd love to hear what you think, but based on all of the studies I've read, anywhere from 0.5 to 1% of your current body weight. So if we have a 200-pound woman, and ideally she should be losing 1 to 2 pounds a week is a reasonable rate.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
it depends on how fast and so this is I'm from personal experience, I just entered a fat loss phase. I'm roughly 140 and I'm going to go a little bit more aggressive with the start, and I'm looking for a pound a week.
Okay.
So, and that's knowing that I'm going to kind of I'm looking at it as like I'm trying to get 5 pounds off, and then probably taking a little bit of time to recover from that, and then working on the next 5 pounds. So, and I'm in no rush to do that, but I worked my way up where I can actually start I built my calories up to 2,400 and I'm coming down to 1,900. So that's very doable.
Okay.
That's still a lot
Yeah.
of food. So yeah, and just for context,
No,
so I think, 1 to 2 pounds per week that's not too fast.
yeah.
I don't know what would be. I mean, so depending again on your body weight, like if you're, I mean, gosh, somebody who went from eating 400 grams of carbs a day to eating nothing is probably going to drop a ton of water weight too. So it's hard to say on a scale what, again, it's like we're looking at what is the type of weight being lost, I think is the better question.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. What kind of, and then I've also seen people who they've been on the medication for like 2 to 3 months and they haven't lost anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's happening too. And, I don't think we know why some people are hyper responders and they're losing weight, maybe after the first or second dose, and other people are not seeing that.
Right.
So I don't think we know that yet.
Yeah.
It may be a conversation with your doctor. Is it time to bump up the dose? Does he or she feel that it's appropriate to do so? And just be prepared that with that dosage increase, right, we're always going after that minimum effective
Mm-hmm.
dose, but there may be additional side effects. So it's just, being in contact with your physician about
Mm-hmm.
that. What are the side effects?
Yeah.
And, as far as what to eat, I mean, that's where we come in, right? It's, nutrient dense foods is what is going to set you up for health, and doing that in conjunction with this will be
Mm-hmm.
helpful. And so this is interesting. Somebody who is following right now said that her weight loss slowed with a higher dose. That's interesting.
The highest dose. How long, if we can ask, how long, like how many months in was this that the highest dose, if she can?
Yeah, that's a good question. And then also, had you hit a plateau? My theory is, and I don't know, once again, I'm just theorizing, is that the closer you get to your goal weight,
Mm-hmm.
that even with a dosage adjustment, it's going to be a little more difficult, and you will likely lose at a faster pace the more that you have to lose.
Right.
Like a 500-pound person who goes on a GLP-1, 200-pound person, that 200-pound person will lose less than the 500-pound. Yeah. But once you do get closer to your goal weight, then that could be the reason that it's slowing.
Yeah.
So she was on it for 6 months total, and
6 weeks
been on
the
highest dose for 6 weeks.
Sounds to me, so if the 6 weeks at the highest dose was at the end of the 6 months, which I'm assuming it was,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds to me just like some adaptation. Her body is kind of adapted to, even if it is the highest approved dose, right?
Yeah.
Her body could have adapted to that just like it would with like dieting, right? If you go too low, your body figures out, hey, if I'm getting 1,200 calories a day, I'm going to figure out how to make those 1,200 calories the most efficient as I can. We're going to slow down everything else. You're going to feel like crap most of the day. Like, I mean, that's a terrible, I'm sad that happened to you. That's not,
yeah,
it's not great, right? But it sounds like our bodies, like they know better than we do, right? And they figure out ways to protect us and keep us alive. And like adaptation is a constant in anything that happens, right? Like I think with medications too, right? Your body can adjust to certain dosages, and I guess that's kind of, I mean, you probably know more about this than I do, Gwen, but that's where my brain went.
I think you're right. I think you're right on target, Sheena. And I think, always trusting our body. Like Sheena has this saying that I love. She says, the body's going to do what the body's going to do. Right. And it's giving us messages, right? So our body's letting us know that you've adapted somehow, and we need to change something up likely. Now, what I'm thinking will likely happen is we'll see providers who have gotten more experience. They'll start doing, let's call it pulse dosing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the products that I represented back in the day, it was an antifungal, and it was taken by mouth for like things like athlete's foot and really tough cases. And instead of taking the medication every day for 3 months, you could take it a higher dose for 1 week of the month, and then the remaining 3 weeks you would be off of the medication. And the reason that was important, and the efficacy rates were the same. So we got the same outcomes, right? and the drug was penetrating the fungus enough to get rid of it, but we didn't have to take a medication every day. And some people are going off of the GLP-1s because, for several reasons. Maybe they had a surgery, they're going on vacation and they forgot to take it with them. They couldn't pay for it. And so they had to stop taking it because they're paying out of pocket. So sometimes people will go back on it because they see a benefit to that. So there may be a strategy of, just like we do with carbs sometimes with our clients, right? We'll have like some high carb days, and to see if we can get a different response, elicit a different response. So it might be, I would talk to your provider about that, or whoever prescribed the medication. Do they have experience with, breaking up, taking intermittent breaks from the medication, and then re-challenging and starting back over maybe in 3 weeks or a month? And that's a strategy that may be helpful.
Yeah.
So I would go back to your provider and ask that question.
And nutritionally, I'm not sure what she's doing, but I would definitely I would take a food log and be, how many calories am I eating? If my body is adapted to this, calorie average or whatever, then, again, there is the option to go down or up, right? Is the option to actually increase your caloric intake, do a little bit of a reverse diet, put some muscle back on before you enter a fat loss phase again, because it's, knowing those numbers is hugely helpful, rather than just kind of winging it or not eating, not eating in a day.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the other benefit that we provide, Sheena, is we can like dig into questions like that are non-medical questions that can give us some ideas on things to try with food, and, other lifestyle things like stress or sleep, fiber, are you getting enough protein, like all of those things, but then helping you decide what you need to go back, or what you can go back and ask your physician. That might be a strategy to get you out of that plateau. Right. Because plateaus happen with this medication too. It's no different than any other way of losing weight. So is it, if that happens, we just got to find a way to help with that. Thanks for joining, Celeste. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the questions.
Yeah, that's great. Super helpful. So I'm just trying to find a way to sum this up. We've been talking for a full hour, which is unbelievable.
I can talk about this for forever. So here's how we can sum it up, Gwen. What would be, if someone were either choosing to take the meds, let's say somebody's going to choose to take these meds, right? And they, for whatever, like I need to lower my A1C. I need to get healthy. I hit the pre-qualifications. I got my prescription. What is the best case scenario? Like, what are best practices here that person can, what should they do today?
Best case scenario is come up with a plan. So get periodic blood work. I would say every 3 months at minimum, request those labs that we talked about: fasting insulin, A1C, fasting glucose. Get a baseline from your physician. If your physician doesn't do that, I would do it on your own with a lab where you don't even need an order from a physician. So Alta Labs online is the one I use. I don't get paid by them. We're not sponsored. There are tons of them, so you can do that. Number 2, I would say track your food. And even if you don't track your food, track your protein. Absolutely, at minimum, have an understanding of how much protein you're eating. And if you don't feel like eating, add some protein powder into a smoothie and sip it all day long, but do your best to get 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. So a 200-pound woman should be eating, what is that? 160 to 200 grams a day, which may seem impossible. And if you're starting at 50, there's no way you're going to get up to 200 in a day, a couple of days. But do your best to get to that target. Number 3, I would say absolutely get your body fat and your lean muscle mass tested, whether it's through a DEXA scan, an in-body, or testing your waist circumference. So those are 3. Like, the last thing I would say is find a way to work on healthy habits, right? You could eat half of the calories you're eating today, but you could still go out and get margaritas and nachos and eat Reese's. That isn't going to make you healthier. That's going to make you thinner because you're on the medication, but my assumption is that most people want to be healthy too. So it's like kind of being eyes wide open about that, and knowing that if you change your habits and you look at kind of your mindset, are you emotionally eating? Are you stress eating? What are some of the other things you can improve upon that are going to make your life better overall, whether you lose weight or not? I would take a look at that as well.
Live the life that you want to be living when you're not on the medication.
Yes.
Eat the way that you want to eat when you're like, you picture yourself 30 pounds thinner, 30 pounds, whatever, 6 months from now. How do you want to be eating? What kind of exercise routine do you want to have? What kind of relationship with others do you want to have? How do you want to feel about yourself in 6 months? And start living that way the second that you decide to take the medication. Eat healthy. Like, don't not eat. I just want people to eat healthy and just eat. But yeah, start living that life, right? And today.
Yeah. And that's great, Sheena. I love ending it that way, because living our lives isn't about food and being a certain weight. It's about, are you connecting with the people you love? One of my clients who is currently on the medication has just started talking about going to see a therapist and deciding if the job that she's currently doing is for her. And to me, as a health and nutrition coach, those are exactly the types of questions that you're getting deep into your values and how do you want to live your life when you're not on this medication, because those are the questions that you need to answer to make it a maintainable and a meaningful journey at the end of this, when you do come off, if you do come off of the medication.
Exactly.
Sweet. You got it.
All right. I'm sure we missed probably some other people's questions and stuff like that too.
I think we got them. But if this is helpful, we could put up a survey or something and just say, hey, if people want us to do part 2, we can do part 2 or do another one or something like that. And just be fun. Let us know. I'll actually post this on our Instagram account, let people know that we'll do a part 2 if we didn't cover any questions. And then I am going to have Allison, one of our clients, I referenced her. She's a previous client. She's, kind of intermittently working with me now, but very, just the minimum effective dose. So back to that, right? Want people to be managing their lives on their own. So I'm going to interview her in a couple of weeks. So I'll be promoting that. So we'll hear it from a client's point of view, a former client of ours, and kind of what her journey looked like before she went on the GLP-1s. She did stop for financial reasons. She's very open about that. So I'm happy to share that. And then she restarted. And what does that look like now? What's her long-term plan? And what has worked for her? I think that'll be very, very helpful for people. So look for that. And then we'll potentially come back for part 2. And you can DM us if you have additional questions for follow-up. Our website is being a little squirrely these days. We're trying to fix it, but you can email either Sheena at Beyond the Box of Nutrition or Gwen at Beyond the Box of Nutrition, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. So,
and we've both worked with people that are on the medication or coming off the medication. So if anybody is interested in kind of needs some support, if you're deciding to go on it or you're coming off of it, if you need support, just let us know. We're here to help.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sheena.
Thanks.